man. Damn.
That's all right. We can do it.
All right.
We can do it another time, man.
We
do
are.
it another time.
We live now.
We on now though, man.
Welcome, everybody, joining us in the basement on a special edition of First Amendment Sports, the HotBox. We're just about ready to get started. You see, we have some special guests. We just lost. Oh, that's just Chris trying to call in. We got some call waiting going on. All right, guys, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Dude, you gotta turn that down, Joe.
That's all right. We just know.
Hey, how do I sound?
You sound good.
great.
You sound fantastic.
Sound good.
All right. I'm on the speakerphone. I just leave it like that.
All right, you sound great. All right, here we go. A little Christmas
I was
soul.
about to say.
Right.
Couple days before the big one.
This is Christmas Eve, isn't it?
Christmas Eve. Welcome. Sunday special edition. We'll call this the book club.
Damn.
We do this normally, even without the cameras. We all get together and talk about books on Sunday morning. That's what we do.
Right.
On behalf of First Amendment Sports, I'm Ken Marangolo. He's Darren McClinton.
Man, it's great to be here this Sunday. I got a little Christmas shopping to do, but got to get it in.
Yeah, I gotta get mine in too, man. I got a lot of last minute.
Juice.
What's going on,
Kevin
fellas? This is
McClinton?
fun. This is gonna be fun. I'm excited about this, man. Anytime we go outside of Tuesday, then it's got to be a special time, man. So this will be a fun edition of the Hot Box.
Welcoming back to the basement, friend of the show. Always more fun when Walt the Wizard Williams is in the house.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
You got to be a little closer to that.
All right.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
better. That's better. If you want to hold it, Walt, you can.
Weird
You can
sound
hold
like
it.
he was in Montana.
Joining us via phone,
Believe it.
Tony Massenburg. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, fellas.
the big
Appreciate
youngin'.
y'all having us on.
BY.
Always.
The big youngin.
It seems silly to introduce these two guys as folks who people don't know who they are. If you don't know who Walt Williams and Tony Massenburg are, shame on you. Especially if you watch this show and watch us on a weekly basis. Everybody knows these guys. Welcome. And by means of introduction, I got Tony. I want to hit you. These are one-word, quick hitter answers to get us started. Get the blood flowing on a Sunday morning. Are you ready?
No, I'm not ready, but
Are you-
we're going to do it anyway.
All right. Hey, Tony, you first. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Man. It's a Christmas action movie. It's an action movie that happened during Christmas. So does that make it a Christmas movie?
I don't know.
That sounds good to me,
I'll
man.
take
sounds
that.
good
I'll
to
take
me.
that.
It's an action
He checked
movie
all
that
the
just
boxes.
happened
All the
during
boxes
Christmas.
just
So
got checked.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say if you take it the Christmas context out of it, then there ain't nothing about it, pertaining to Christmas.
Well, you take the Christmas out of anything. It's not Christmas.
Hell, you can't take the Christmas out of Christmas. Christmas is what it is.
All right.
You can't take Christmas out of Christmas. 25th rolls up, it's Christmas.
Yeah.
All right, Walt Williams.
There you have it.
Walt Williams' best Christmas song, number 1.
Oh, man.
We did this last week, so
Yeah, we did.
That is tough.
Come on, Wiz.
I'm going to go with Let It Snow, the song you just came on with. I like that.
The Boyz II Men, Brian McKnight version.
Boys the Men version.
It's
Yeah,
it's
right
pretty solid.
there.
I like
Yeah,
that. I like that
that's a classic.
song. I like The Temptations.
Silent Night
There it
Temptations.
is.
Silent
Yep,
Night
there you go.
Temptations.
That's another one.
That would probably be my number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Silent
that's
Night
a
Temptations.
solid number. I think we all had that in our top 2 or 3. No,
Well, that's the top 3, but the
Yeah.
Nat King Cole one.
The
The
whole
Saturday Night
album.
Nat King. Yeah, the
whole
Nat King
album,
Cole is probably the best.
I just like the fact that I never thought there was going to be anything that much better
But
than
coming
Mariah.
up, I tried to get my voice as deep as I could to do that. Merry Christmas.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right,
That's
right.
a high voice dude
Yeah.
that started off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got the
Oh,
Christmas spirit flowing, guys. I don't want to bring everyone down all the way, but we do. I want to talk about the Washington Wizards, and I thought maybe the way we get Tony going to talk about the Washington Wizards on as positive a note as possible was to ask Tony the simple question: chart us a path to the playoffs, Tony.
Chart us a path to the playoffs.
Yeah, how's it going to work? What's it going to look like? What do they got to do?
Well, a lot of that's going to depend on the Wizards' approach. If you look at the Wizards, and again, last night's game, triple overtime, no John Wall, a hot Phoenix team that has come in and been winning 4 games in a row. Great young team. They're going to be good, in a couple of years because they've got some talented pieces with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Trust me when I tell you, yeah, maybe he only did 1 year at Arizona, but I saw that dude last night in person. That's a grown man. He's a grown man. I mean, he's a legit 7'1", great coordination, strong body, good bounce, athletic, the whole nine. And he was a man child down there last night. But the Wizards showed a lot of grit last night. Bradley Beal had a ridiculous game.
So did the young guy Bryant.
Thomas Bryant, that's what I was getting ready to tell you. Thomas Bryant drops 31 and 13 rebounds and literally goes head up with DeAndre Ayton. He had his hands full, and Ayton ended up fouling out. But the young fella, Bryant, showed so much energy that it actually energized the rest of the team. And the one thing the Wizards been criticized for is a lack of effort. And last night's game, that triple overtime against a team with young legs and a young, energetic, up-and-coming team, they could have folded. I mean, triple overtime was, for all you guys know how hard a triple overtime game is.
Yeah.
And those guys gritted it out. So if they could continue to show that type of grit for the rest of the season, then the playoffs are in their future. But, we got to see how that plays out over the rest of the season.
I think it's a big loss to not having Oubre, man. I think Oubre, I think he's going to have a bright future in Phoenix as well. He brings a lot of energy, and I was a little, Ariza brings that leadership and everything, but man, that's a hell of a sacrifice to have to give up that energy guy like a Oubre.
Youth and athleticism
tremendous
too.
Upside,
You're right, Wiz. And the one thing that with that trade exposes is that, the Wizards lost a guy that's going to be one of the best defensive players in the league. I mean, Kelly Oubre guarded Bradley Beal a couple of times last night in crucial situations. And Brad had a very, very hard time trying to shake this dude. I mean, you got to remember the Wizards would use Kelly Oubre to guard point guards. Right. When they were in the playoffs a couple of years ago, they used him to guard Isaiah Thomas because he was the only dude on the floor that could really make a difference.
Right.
So, they gave that up, and you get some veteran leadership from Trevor Ariza. But Ariza, in my opinion, is still a good player, but he's on the downside of his career. And, the Wizards may or may not be able to re-sign him next year. So we'll see.
Mas, let me ask you this, man. When the original trade that was we were trying to pass through, it didn't work. And then you came back and you found out that there was going to have to be another trade made. Do you think the Wizards had to make that trade to kind of save face because the original trade didn't go through?
There's no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt, Juice. No, because when you look at the fact that Kelly Oubre found out he was about to be traded, first of all, after a loss, in the locker room, while he was in the shower.
Right.
He literally was in the shower and got tapped on the shoulder, said, hey, somebody needs to talk to you.
Right.
And they proceed to tell a kid. And here's the other thing. I talked about this last night on the post-game show and the pre-game show. For a guy in his third year, and Wiz, you understand this, when that first time that you're traded, it rattles your confidence a little bit in yourself. When you feel that first bit of what feels like rejection, it rattles your confidence as an athlete, and you eventually get over it, but it takes a while. And when you looked at Kelly Oubre in the first half of that game last night, he didn't look like himself. And I told Christy Winter-Scott, who was sitting next to me on the broadcast, I told her, I said, he's going to play better in the second half. He's just got to get some of this out, being back in this arena so soon, seeing the fans, being on the other side. It's a little weird for him. And second half, the kid stepped up defensively. He knocked down some shots, and he was a real problem for the Wizards going down the stretch, but they ultimately pulled it out.
I think that had to do with directly him coming back and facing the Wizards. If you look at him over the past 4 or 5 games with Phoenix, man, he's been playing well. And you're absolutely right. When you that first time you get traded, you do take it personally. Like you look internally and think something is wrong with you. But for me, what I did was when I internalized things, man, it came out to me as I'm gonna show them. So every time I got traded, my perspective was, watch, man, I'm gonna show them. They're gonna wish they did not do
Right.
that.
Yeah,
And so,
Right.
Wiz, that's a great point because Oubre had a couple tweets right after the trade that he was like, "I'm going to kill who's ever in front of me, and I'm
Right.
going to show that I have a new home now, and everybody's going to feel it. If
Right.
you're in my way, you're going to feel it." So, it kind of sparked him.
Let me ask y'all this: is there a positive when you get traded? Because obviously you're feeling, all right, well, this team doesn't want me. They're including me in the trade package. But on the flip side, there's somebody who wants you.
Yeah.
Like a team has to agree to trade for you because they see value in what you do. So while the initial shock of, dang, I just got traded. But then on the flip side, you look at it like, man, Phoenix wants me.
But if you
like
think
I
about it,
was
though-
a part of that trade.
Juice, if you
where
think
they want
about
to come.
it, Kelly Oubre is one of the young rising stars,
Right,
or
right,
potentially, if you're
right.
looking at potential or upside, he's one of the guys that what team wouldn't want a young, athletic,
Sure.
lengthy, two-way player like a Kelly Oubre. So
Right.
I don't think that he was down like nobody else wants me or something like that, but. It does like Tony mentioned, it does touch you a little bit and be like,
Sure.
well, where I am now, maybe
Right.
they don't want me.
Right.
It's a business, though.
Yeah,
It's
you eventually evolve into, okay, the other team wants me, but initially, I mean, it takes a while to
It
get
takes
there.
a while to
Initially,
get there.
dealing with the other side. They didn't
Yeah,
want me.
right.
And that's the thing that's fueling you. You're not thinking of, because in theory, you're absolutely right. If
Right.
somebody doesn't want you and they trade you, that means the other team
Some other team wanted you,
But
yeah.
you don't. In reality, you don't see that part
Right,
of it
right.
until it's later on. You're
Right.
dealing with your feelings.
And it's
Right.
hard to
right
look
out
at the
gate.
it's hard to look at the business side of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're the Wizards, the bargaining power are in your potential guy, like what you can get back for trading somebody. You know what I mean? But a young player doesn't look at the positive side. Say, I'm worth a lot.
Right.
So a team,
Right.
The
I'm a
Wizards
big
would love
chip,
to have Kelly
you know?
Oubre, but there was no future for the team and Oubre based on the salary cap realities.
Exactly.
With
Exactly.
the biggest problem with the trade is that they turned down deals in the recent past that
Right.
potentially may have netted the organization back. Nothing against Trevor Ariza, but I think they had opportunities within the last 6 to 8 months that may have been a better deal for the
Right,
Wizards.
right.
You know, Tony, I don't know if you.
Probably
Let me-
should've signed Porter.
Mass,
Yeah, right.
Mass, let me ask you this, man. I mean, you've seen, you and Walt obviously have, you guys see these guys every night and you've have a relationship with them, Mass, you cover them. What has been the deal with them this year, man? Like we went in this year thinking that, getting Dwight Howard and, LeBron James leaving the East and, there was an opportunity there for the Wizards to take that next step and possibly contend for the Eastern Conference. What has been, they seem like they can't get out of their own way. Like what do you see on a night-to-night basis that is keeping the Wizards from being consistent and being a threat in this Eastern Conference race?
Well, first of all, the things that I see with the Wizards are things that I've seen that go back, I'd say, 10 years.
Okay.
And the reason why I say this is the way I go, is because when you get to a point where you question effort, like we have with the Washington Wizards over the years, that's a problem.
Yeah.
When you get to a place where your locker room isn't truly settled, and there seems to be some issues, and you go back and forth with some people and some internal struggle within the locker room, that's a problem we've seen for a number of years now. So when you have some of those issues with people not getting along, sometimes when you have issues where you walk away from a games and in the press conference the coach is talking about questionable effort, those things are problematic, and those things undermine your long-term goals. And those have been things that have been lamented about the Wizards, not just this season, but last year, the year before that, and the year before that.
Wow.
And so that has been the Wizards' issue. It's a lack of consistent play. And when they play well, they obviously can be one of the better teams in the East. And also health. John Wall missed, a lot of games last year. And when he came back, he was trying to get back into rhythm, and the team was trying to get back into rhythm. And they never really quite got going because he didn't come back until, the very end of the season. And so with that being said, the team never really gelled.
Okay.
And Also, they were devoid of an inside presence last year from a defensive standpoint. No rim protection. They lack rebounding. So they tried to address a lot of these things in the summer with signing Dwight Howard and bringing in Austin Rivers and Jeff Green. Ultimately, Jeff Green has worked out. Austin Rivers did not. Dwight Howard has been injured. So the team that we thought was going to be available for the Wizards this season with these additions turns out it has not been that way. And so we're seeing them struggle a little bit. But I thought last night's game was encouraging, even though John Wall wasn't there. It's just that you have to see them play consistently more often in order for them to be the team that all of us think they can be.
Hey Tony, and you tell me if you disagree. When you're talking about lack of effort, in my opinion, you know, when we go out here and play this game, you definitely play because you want to have success. You know, you have pride in the way you play the game, and you know everybody's watching to see who is the best.
No doubt.
And it's about pure competition, but it's extra things that, because everybody is elite, so it's extra things that you got to bring to the table, like for the coaching staff. The players got to believe in those coaches, and because of that, they give that extra effort for the coaches. All right, and then also it's if you have a leader on your team, that guy is somebody you think about when you're playing. That I want to give a great effort. I don't want to let this dude down.
Right.
Who is that on the Wizards? I believe that the leader of this team is John Wall, and so I think it's a reflection of him. And it's interesting that he didn't play in the last game, and they played with that effort.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And
Right.
so I believe that those players, to a man, don't go, I don't want to let John Wall down out here when they playing the game.
Right.
And I don't want to let Coach Brooks down when I'm out here. I think those things are the reasons why you don't see the effort
Right.
on a nightly basis for the Wizards, because they don't have that extra added incentive to go out there and play for the coaches and their leader.
Yep.
Well, a lot of I understand how you can say that, Wiz, and I can't disagree with that. And I'll just add this: the difference, and again, our generation, meaning me and you and all you guys in the studio, we were all self-motivated. First of all, and Wiz, you said it. When you're out there, even if you know, you're not on your game, you have a certain level of pride.
Yes.
And you don't want to let the other guy on the other side show you up.
Right.
So you're willing to foul out if you're not playing well, you know, because you're just that desperate to have a good showing. When you look at this team in particular, and you talk about leadership, a lot of times your all-stars and your best players are your leaders by default, because they're the faces of your organization. And a lot of times, guys that are the face of the organization aren't automatically qualified to be leaders, and are not the leaders that, or may not be the vocal leaders that you may be accustomed to. Some guys lead by the way they play. Well, I actually think that's more the case with Bradley Beal and John Wall. And I think that John goes out when he does play. He plays hard, and he wants to set an example that way. He's not a guy who comes up and drops words of wisdom a lot of times, because I just don't think that's the way he leads. And neither does Bradley Beal lead in that manner. But Bradley Beal was a leader last night in that game with no John Wall by the way that he played. And Brad, in his post-game comments, said that he was inspired by Thomas Bryant's effort, because the one thing he loved about Thomas Bryant, and he loves Thomas Bryant as a player, the reason why he loves Thomas Bryant is because he plays hard. He said that's it.
Yeah.
Thomas Bryant doesn't have
I caught that too.
He doesn't have a tremendous skill set as a big. He's a athletic 6'10" guy that rim runs and plays with a lot of energy. He covers well defensively, particularly, you know, on the weak side. He steps up for his forwards and his guards when they get beat, and that's what the Wizards need from an energy standpoint. Well, when I look at them, a lot of times they've had lapses in that energy, and that's what's led to their consistent play. And Wiz, you talked about the coaching staff and maybe putting them in a position to play or to win, rather. and that's a great analogy. But ultimately, going back to, again, our generation, we didn't need our coaches to motivate us to play. So all we need our coaches to do was to give us a good game plan, and we would carry it out to the best of our ability. A lot of times, because there's so many other things around the game now from social media standpoint.
That's a great point.
That I think players get distracted a lot of times,
Yeah.
and it skews their view of the game, which sometimes honestly affects their effort.
Yes.
So I think you look at those things and those dynamics, and you just have to be a real pro and be accountable and understand that, people are always watching and that you're always going to be judged by what you did last. And you try to continue to build on that.
Well,
Yeah.
Great
speaking
points.
of your generation, let's take it all the way back. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let's transition over to Maryland, and let's start off by first making sure everyone understands we got some teammates on the show.
Right.
I will ask. I'll ask. Let's start with Walt. Of the three of you, who was the person who was more likely in practice to get on one of the other two of you? Would it be you, or would it be one of these other
I
guys?
think it would have been me.
Okay.
I think it would have been me. Yeah.
Pick it up.
Yeah,
Pick it up.
I mean, I probably wouldn't have said pick it up, but I might have said, a few curse words or something.
Yeah.
We were a real close knit team. We were like brothers, so
Yep.
we could
Right.
say whatever to each other, and you wouldn't catch feelings. But yeah, I would get us in the huddle, and I might say anything, man. Like, let's hurry up and, let's get to the club. Or so, I mean, I
Right.
would say anything,
Right.
man.
Right.
Just get us
Right.
lighten up the
Right.
mood. If I thought the mood needed to be lightened up, or I needed to light a fire under guys, I would do what I thought that I needed to do.
What-
I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me kind of talk a little bit about this because, I was a young dude. I was a young guy, and when I came in, Mass was a senior, and we lived in the same dorm, and the one thing about Mass, and obviously I've spoken several times about Wiz when we've been on, but the one thing about Mass is that Mass was the bridge from the past with Maryland to when I got there, the present. He had the opportunity to play with, and we'll talk about this later. He had a chance to play with Lynn Bias. He had an opportunity to play for 3 different coaches, and it's funny that he played for 3 different coaches and he never transferred. You know what I mean? So, and that's rare, but he had the opportunity to kind of get that experience. And, we all leaned on Mass, when I was there, and I know Walt can talk about this as well, leaned on Mass for that, just for, his experience. And, he told me a lot about Maryland when I got there about, how to be a player, how to be a college student and all those types of things. And, I only got a chance to play 1 year with Mass, but that kind of helped me in my transformation into being a college player. And then obviously being able to play with this guy across the table and, but leaning on what I learned from Mass and then being able to play with Wiz, it meant a lot for me because I learned a lot. You know what I mean? I learned a lot. And Wiz was right. Wiz would be the one that would kind of, come on, guys, let's go. And when Wiz says this, kind of back to what we were saying before about not letting your leader down, not letting your best player down. In those situations, I didn't want to let Mass down, and I didn't want to let Walt down. So when Walt said, all right, let's go, man. We got to play. Let's get out of here, man. That inspired you to, okay, if this dude is saying let's go, if we're not getting effort, then we got to play. We have to be able to pick it up a little bit. So for me, being able to play with Mass and Walt was a big deal from a standpoint of just growth, but then also because you had the opportunity to learn what great players, how they play and how they think and how they react to things. So.
I hope you had a big dorm room.
We did. It was
Allegheny
solid.
Hall,
It was solid.
Allegheny.
Because
That was
dorms
the
are
first
small.
one.
Washington
Shoot,
Hall
I
was
went
my
that.
first one. Hey,
I mean,
tell you
Tony
what,
Massenburg's he's not a tiny guy.
I tell you the biggest
a big
the
roommate.
biggest thing I could tell you that Tony brought to the table for me was when I got switched to being the point guard. I literally, whenever I would get the ball, I would turn and look for, I knew B-Nax would take off running out in the wing, and I knew like guys like Tion, I knew that they would be out on the wing. But I had a comfort level in knowing that whenever I got it, I was looking for the fast break because I knew that if we set up in half court, I wait for Tony come down, and I could just throw it to him.
Right.
He gave me that comfort in knowing that anything I can do anything out here, make it, I can push the envelope and try to press these guys. And if nothing was there, I could just pull it out and then throw it into him.
Right.
And so he gave me that comfort level, and it made me be more aggressive on the offensive end. But that's funny that when Juice just mentioned about the things I would say and stuff like that, I felt the guy. I could feel that we went to another level. I felt like they was playing hard for themselves, but also me. I felt that, and I didn't want to let them down either. I knew that they relied on me. I didn't want to let them down, and I felt like they did things to show me that they didn't want to let me down either. So we was accountable to each other out there, and I think that was because we were so close on and off the court.
For me, it was, I was one of those leaders. I tried to lead by the way I played.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know that I would talk to you, and I'm not big on rah-rah speeches. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that I'm going to talk about what we need to do. I'll follow the game plan that the coach has laid out. I'll echo some of his words, and I want to make sure that everybody is as engaged as I am.
Right.
That's it. Whatever your role is, I wasn't a guy. Some seniors are, when the freshmen come in, they just dog the freshmen, just to put them through the gauntlet or whatever. I wasn't that guy. I was tough, but I was, tough when I had high expectations for myself.
Yeah.
So I would want my teammates also to have high expectations. And, Juice brought it up, playing for 3 different coaches at the University of Maryland. The reason why I stayed at Maryland is because, first of all, it was my decision to come to Maryland.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And I have friends that, and we all have friends that have kids that are now getting ready to go into college, and some of them are fortunate enough. Walt's son's going to Wichita State,
Yeah.
and
Max's son going to Wichita State.
I'm sorry, Max's son going to Wichita
My son
State.
going to Boston
We're
College.
going to Boston College.
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
I knew
yeah.
that. I knew that. So, but the point of what I'm saying is that we understood that we made our own decisions to come to Maryland. Like, my parents or nobody else didn't guide me to Maryland. I love Maryland ever since I was in the 9th grade. I love the University of Maryland. So that's why I came. And then when everything happened, that's why I stayed. But make no mistake about it, it was not easy to really find my niche, because I played for 3 different coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to get better at a time where you're playing in 3 different systems at your college, while being immersed in turmoil at the time that I was there, that is a difficult process to try to literally improve as a player. And so by the time you guys saw me, meaning Juice at least, by the time Juice saw me as a senior, Walt saw me in '88, hey man, I had some battle scars, a whole lot of, psychological battle scars. And so my thing was, I was in survival mode. As far as, and when I say survival mode, meaning I was in survival mode for my career as a basketball player, because I had to get it done in some really tough circumstances, playing with 3 different coaches and everything that comes with that. So my leadership came from a place where I had went through the gauntlet. And so I had a kind of a no excuses kind of mentality. I didn't use the things that were happening at the time I was in school as an excuse not to be good. So I was determined to be good, and that's what I really wanted to pass on to you guys. I watched Kevin McClinton come in as a freshman, much like myself, needing to get in the weight room, needing to up his game, to be better as a basketball player, and just learn what it is to be a student athlete. And I tried to pass that on to him. And when I came back in 1991, and I'm looking at Juice now, 10, 15 pounds heavier, grew like an inch, and is like a not just a solid player at Maryland, but a starter, a guy that you can look at and be like, you know what? Kevin McClinton's got a real chance to be one of the better players at Maryland. That made me proud when I looked at somebody who is going through it and literally getting better. When I looked at Walt ascend the way that he did his junior year, those were the things that made me feel good and made me feel like, okay, those guys must have learned something. I must have helped them somewhere, because I'm watching them go through the same path that I went through, as far as needing to improve from your freshman year on until your senior year. And I saw you two guys in particular do that as much as anybody that ever come to the University of Maryland. And that made me proud. So that's where I saw, or that's the kind of leader that I tried to be. I wasn't the rah-rah guy.
So
but I
you
was
was
the guy that
definitely
was
in
by
the weight
example.
room, son. You was in the weight room.
Hey man,
like
hey look,
crazy,
No,
I'm gonna
that-
tell you, this. This dude was one of the strongest dudes
Oh,
I
my
ever
goodness.
seen
That's all I think
in
of.
my life, man.
That's how I want to transition to this point that I have, and it's a question that I have for you two guys. When I was a youngster,
Right.
coming watching Maryland play, it had to be the biggest, strongest front court I've ever seen, ever.
Right.
This was an NBA size front
Yeah,
court
it
in
was,
college
man.
basketball. I mean, you had your
Yeah.
Gerards, you had your Bison Delays, Brian Williams, you
Right.
had Mash, you had
Right.
the Lewis brothers,
Right.
you know what I mean, and Wiz. So I'm looking at that. So my question is, how, T-Mass, I'm gonna ask you first. How do you feel that you would fare in today's small ball game? You know, the game has changed so much to where it's not so inside out anymore. And Walt talked about how you were a security blanket because he knew he could just throw it down to you on the block. Now you're watching college games and they rarely throw it down on the block at all. How do you feel you would fare in today's game? You would obviously had to change some things about your game offensively, but how do you think you would fare in today's small ball?
Well, let me just say this, and you guys, I can say this to you guys because you guys have played with me during the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
The game that I played in the summertime in North Gym, in Coldfield House, Small Gym, or wherever we played at in the summertime,
Mm-hmm.
that was my game. The game that you saw me play at the NBA level and even in college, that was part of my game. Because you have to realize at the time that we played, if you were 4 or 5, you were expected to be able to play inside. And if you couldn't play inside, you would not play as a big. That's just it. If you were 6'9", 6'10", 7 feet, and you shoot jump shots, and you don't play inside, and you don't rebound, and you don't defend and protect the rim, you would not play, plain and simple. Now, in this generation, guys are guys that can't shoot are encouraged to shoot 3 points.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You guys know, and Wiz and Kevin can probably speak to this too. When I played basketball in the summertime, I did not play the same way that I played during the regular season.
Nah,
You
not
guys
at all.
know that.
Not at
I
all.
had to play the roles. I had to rebound. I had to play inside. I could make threes because I would make them in practice all the time. You guys know that I
Yeah.
had range on my jump shot in
Yeah.
the summertime, but I played a different way during the season because I had to play roles. So when you asked me that question, or
Darren.
Darren, when you asked me this question,
Mm-hmm.
how would I fare right now? My answer would be the way you guys saw me play in the summertime.
Yeah.
When I'm dribbling the ball up the court
Right.
sometimes, when I'm literally shooting out to the 3-point line, that would be the game that I would be playing. So to answer your question, I would have fared better in this situation with small ball than I did in traditional basketball back in the day. Why? Because half the time I was guarding people like Shaquille O'Neal,
Right.
you
Right.
know, Tim Duncan,
Right.
Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon.
You
These
know
were
what,
my
Tony?
defensive sons.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I was thinking the same thing because a valuable forward right now, and you always took care of your body. You were always in tip-top shape, and you were mobile. So you were kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, like an undersized big
There you
back
go.
then.
I was an undersized center.
Right.
I was a power forward that could play center.
Right,
And I also
right.
played small forward one year. See, a lot of people don't know that about me. I played small forward in Philadelphia, and our front line, you talk about big front lines, our front line was Derek Coleman as a center, Clarence Witherspoon.
Oh,
was a power forward.
yeah.
Spoon.
Okay, and I was the small forward, and John Lucas was our coach, another University of Maryland grad.
Yeah.
And he did that because our team was a team that is actually the team was so bad that John just said, you know what, I'm playing the best 5, no matter what their position is. And he said, Mass, you're gonna have to play small forward because you got to play. I was like, cool.
Right.
Right,
So
and
I
that's
had to guard
valuable
the-
now for
Yeah.
a forward
Yeah,
in
exactly.
today's game to be able to switch out on the pick and roll
right.
and laterally
No
be
doubt.
able to stay with those
Right.
with those
With
guards.
those guards.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The only thing I'll say, guys, about my own game is that I will never get credit for my versatility. I was versatile. I could do more than one thing. That's why I lasted for so long, and that's
Right.
why I could play on 12 teams, and that's why I could play for 3 different coaches at the University of Maryland, even though they all had me playing relatively the same role. But when I got to the pros, I couldn't just rebound. I couldn't just defend. I couldn't just score. I had to do all of those things
Right.
at different points. So it was about versatility. So that's why
right.
I said, you're damn right. I could have played small ball in this generation because I was playing center against dudes that were 4 or 5 inches taller than me and still holding my own.
And Wiz,
So-
what about
You
what about
already
you?
know.
Would you have been a
already know?
would
bro.
you now here's my question. Would you have been a one and done or two and done guy like a Kyle Anderson or because today somebody with your skill set at your height, they're not staying in college long.
Absolutely.
Wiz
I would've
would've been
one
gone,
and
man.
done.
You
I would've
would've
been
one
a
and
two
done.
I'd have been a 2 and done. In my sophomore year when Gary allowed me, and that's a great point that Tony made. If you're 6'9", most of us, you play inside. Well,
Right.
to Gary's credit, I went to him with the suggestion of letting me run the point and moving Tion McCoy to the 2 guard who was 5'10". Right. And so I got to take my hat off to him to be able to see that and say, okay, let me see how that looks. And he gave me a chance, and I remember the next day that I suggested that he had the backup team just press me all practice, and just to prove that I can handle it. And once he saw that I could, he let me do that. And so the reason why I think I would definitely have so much more success in today's environment is that. For wing guys, the game was just so much more physical. You could
Right.
forearm, hand check guys, and you could nullify guys who were more athletic, more quicker than you were by putting your hands on them. I couldn't imagine somebody trying to guard me without
Touching
and
me,
they can't touch me.
You're
Oh
right.
my goodness,
You're right.
It would be ridiculous. So I definitely think I would cook in today's environment.
Yeah.
I'm
No
gonna
question.
tell you this about Wiz though, and this is this is one of the things when I saw him play in the league that I got frustrated with because I'm like, Wiz turned himself into one of the best shooters in the NBA when he got to the league. I mean, he worked on it, and he became a great shooter. And when I saw him in college, and the reason why he got the name the Wizard is because he could do so many things on the court. You got to do 6'8" that can handle the ball. I mean, and dribbles high. He used to dribble the ball high, and you couldn't take it from him.
Socks
You know
high,
what I
too.
mean?
Socks
I was gonna say,
real high.
higher than the
But he had so many skills, and when he got to, when he got to the NBA, it's almost like they made him into a 3-point shooter, and I was like, he's got so much more to his game that he could do, and that's Walt, you obviously can talk about this better than me, but I'm like, the reason why this dude is the Wizard is because of all the things he can do.
Yeah.
And then he got to lead. I think his first year at SAC, he was able to do a lot of those things, even a couple years. And then after that, he became such a great shooter. It was almost like he was a 3-point shooter, but he was so much more than that. And I don't know, Wiz. You can talk about that,
You're
man.
absolutely right. My first couple of years, I wasn't a great shooter, so I used to get the ISOs and I got buckets that way. But I saw that it wore me down a lot to have to go through the mix up every time
Right.
to get a bucket.
Right.
I knew that I needed to work on my jump shot to make the game easier, and I worked religiously, and I turned myself into a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that coaches saw that and kind of put me into that role,
Right.
And sort of made me see the importance of being a complementary player to a go-to
guy.
Yeah,
Right.
and so I just tried to hey, I fit into whatever role you wanted me to, and
Right.
just try to maximize whatever I can do.
Right.
And so in any situation I went into, I just tried to do what the coaches wanted me to do.
Hey, Wiz, and that is what the NBA life is, and that's what you just said. Just cements everything that I just said about myself.
Yeah.
And meaning that, I had to play inside and I had to rebound and defend, and that became my reputation. Not because it was the only thing that I could do, but it was what role
Was
the
asked
role
of.
that got
Yeah, it was
designated
asked
for
of.
me.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like you got turned into a shooter, even though you were a tremendously versatile all-around player.
Right.
But when people mention you and they think about you at the NBA level, they think about you as a shooter.
Right.
You know, and yeah,
Absolutely.
But that's a
your name, the
testament to you
Wizards.
guys' professionalism, though. It's being a professional, being a pro.
Yeah,
Being
you
able
got
to
to
adapt
accept
and
that.
do.
You
You have
have
to
to
accept
accept
it
that
and do
role.
do what's asked of you.
Yep.
I like the idea of the when I think about that era of the NBA and I think about you on the wing with the high socks waiting for the ball. There's two guys that come to mind that for me to kind of bridge the gap between the hard charging, hand checking, forearm, battling to what today is. You and Sam Perkins. For some reason, I always think about the two of y'all,
Sleepy Sam.
Sleepy Sam
Yeah,
on the
Sleepy
outside,
Sam, Joe,
knocking him
Sleepy
down
Sam.
forever. Could do it, could do it forever. I never. It's not. I can obviously. I have my heart on one more than the other, but there was to the two of you guys. The joy in being out there and putting it down from outside.
Smooth.
It was awesome.
Hey Ken, I wanna
Let's
wanna
talk about
let's talk
this.
about the book.
the book a little bit.
Let's move it on. Yeah.
And Tony and Walt, I do want to say congratulations on
Thank you, man.
on the book and
Lessons from Lenny.
yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. How long has this project been in the works, and what inspired you all to write it?
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna just say a little bit and let Tony, because at the end of the day, this book is about two different perspectives. Tony was there when it happened. He was a teammate of Len Bias's, and so he has that perspective. And I was a recruit, a young, bushy-tailed, just looking at it all and wanting to follow in footsteps. So for me, me and Tony, we've been teammates. We were teammates in '88, 30 years ago, and so whenever we get together, we reminisce about the good old days, and most often bias dominates the topic, and so we just felt like the world should know of the impact that he had on our lives and the positive impacts and the influences that he had on the community and the university as a whole. The narrative of the tragedy that went along with his life is basically we felt like the only narrative that's there, and so he was much more than that. And for me personally, you see the kids nowadays, and they publicize the NBA so much, and you'll see the guys playing and pretending to be whomever in the NBA. For me, I didn't have dreams of being an NBA player. I had dreams of being Len Bias. He was my motivation. And so it led me to where I eventually went in basketball, but I didn't really pay attention to. I didn't even know being in the NBA was a real reality. I thought that it happened to people from somewhere else. And so Len Bias brung those realities to life for me.
And it was down the street from you.
Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. I knew
PG
he was
County.
from where I'm from,
Yeah.
and I saw the success and what was going on, what was happening with him. I had never followed a career like that before until that moment, and so he made me understand that okay, you couldn't possibly be an NBA player,
Right.
but it's just that on a playground though, it was just as simple as on a playground. Us as little kids
Right.
used to pretend like we were Len Bias,
Yep.
and that's what I wanted. I wanted the kids in my community to pretend like they were me,
Right.
and so that's how inspirational Len Bias was for me.
For
What about
me,
you,
I
Mass?
was, I didn't grow up in this immediate area. I grew up in Southern Virginia, right outside of south of Richmond. And so when you get down that far south, it's mostly Virginia Tech fans, UVA fans, Carolina fans, because you're kind of right on the border of North Carolina when you go that far south in Virginia. So you got a lot of Carolina influence. And the first time I saw Len Bias, his sophomore year, I was just enamored on a level that I had never been with anybody else other than Julius Erving. And I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be able to run and jump and shoot like Len Bias. And so that part of his game really appealed to me. And I was a Maryland supporter from that point forward. So just imagine now, if you were, let's just say you could put Kobe Bryant in a time machine and make him, 4 years younger than Michael Jordan. That's what it meant to me. If Kobe Bryant had the opportunity to play a year with Michael Jordan in college, if he was forced to go to college, I'm sure Kobe Bryant would have done that. I had the chance to play with my Michael Jordan. That was Len Bias.
Wow.
So for me to come there for 1 year, and I knew that Lenny obviously was a senior I'd only get to play 1 year, but that was everything in the world to me. So that's how I ended up at the University of Maryland, following Len Bias's or trying to be like Len Bias, as Wiz said. And so that's where my love for Maryland truly developed. So when we came out with this project, again, like Wiz said, we wanted to talk about the positive influence that Len Bias had on our lives because he was very positive. I learned a lot of things my freshman year from Len Bias as far as how to be a better player, as far as what type of man I wanted to be. He was charismatic. He was a great teammate. We idolized him as freshmen in particular because, he was the guy. I mean, he was the first superstar that I had ever met and been around.
And that jumper was so pretty.
The jumper was the prettiest
beautiful.
jump shot I
The
still say
prettiest
to this
jump
day
shot.
that I've
Absolutely.
ever seen. Prettiest jump shot I've ever seen. Tried to imitate it, much like everybody else, and never quite got it down. So Len Bias was a great human being. And again, Walt and I understood the things that came in the aftermath of his death. But we wanted to put this book out because we want to show people the positive influence that Len Bias had on us personally and remind people of the effects that he had on society. Because when you talk about Len Bias, it's bigger than basketball.
Right.
I mean, there were things that were changed that are still in play to this very day from a congressional standpoint that a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
And so we talk about a lot of those things in the book, as well as all the positive influences that he had.
Now,
the University of Maryland was reborn after Len Bias, and it came back a better university than it was before. And so in his death, there was a lot of good that came out of it, despite the pain that we all felt from losing it.
I think the main thing for me when I see you guys writing this book is obviously the personal aspect of it and how you guys felt playing with him and idolizing him and all those different types of all those different types of things. But to really educate people outside of the DMV who knew Len, who could, who respected Len, who watched him play, who grew up idolizing him. There are a lot of people that don't know how Lenny was. They don't know the type of person he was. And the only thing they do is when they hear Len Bias's name, they think about how he passed. And there's so much more to this man that people in this area just don't know. And I think to educate the country, educate the world as far as who Len Bias really was from two guys who really appreciated him and respected him, I think is huge because, I hear it all the time. I hear, Len Bias, well, it's a shame, what happened. That's the first thing you hear them say is it's a shame, it's a tragedy, what he could have been. And they don't think about what he was up until that point. You know what I mean? They all go by what he could have been, but what about what he did for the first 22, 23 years of his life that people don't see? So I think this book really focuses on that as opposed to just what unfortunately happened to Len at the end.
And I have another question, guys. And so the project took about 2 years, you say? About 2 years. So, and I know you've got insight, T-Mass and Wiz, you have insight. Were you all able to get a lot of other outside influence that helped y'all put this together, or you getting insight from a lot of different angles?
Well, we got we got quotes from Lefty Drizel, of course, Gary Williams, Coach Wade. We have some quotes from Juan Dixon, just people who have been influenced by Len Bias and
in the Maryland community.
Think that, it goes out. It goes out. So even though he played in 82 to 86, something that time frame, beyond that, people were influenced by him because he just had that much of an impact. And like I said earlier, I mean, the book. What's interesting about the book is that it's telling a story from two different perspectives. And Tony's is from how he viewed or how it impacted him being involved in that situation, that guy being a teammate. But mine's was from, you know, seeing that situation. See, I grew up as a Georgetown Hoya fan. John Thompson,
Me too.
you know, Bebe Doran,
Right.
you know,
Sleepy Floyd.
yeah, you know, Reggie. So, and then my father took me to a Carolina Terp game, and man, he was a Carolina fan, and I liked Adrian Branch.
Right.
So, and then I saw Len Bias jumper in real life, man, and it was like what it was something I'd never forget. And from that point on, I found myself, you know, starting to watch the sports shows at the end of the night, looking for Maryland, and all of a sudden, I became a Terp fan. I was forever Terp from watching that dude, and so, you know, he had a serious impact on me. And so when this tragedy happened, it fueled me even more because I felt like this black cloud was over the university, and I knew the positive impacts that he had on us, and to hear him being talked about in that way, it bothered me a lot, and I wanted to be a part of turning things around and you know, having positive thoughts when you think about University of Maryland.
Well, I think it's also important to remember, because we've talked to Walt about this before. Last time you were on the show, you had the chance to go somewhere else. You had a chance to punch a ticket anywhere, and I always remember you telling us, no, I wasn't going anywhere. And to me, like, that was like the immediate legacy of Len. It was an action that you took that was directly influenced by him, and it positively influenced Maryland basketball at that moment and beyond. So, I mean, I just got to tip my hat to you just for that alone, because you put your thoughts and words and heart into action at a very young age. And you proved it. I mean, it was right there. You could have done anything. And so to me, that's why I think the book is powerful right off the bat, because
Ken,
there's meaning there.
I got a question for you, Ken. As a fan, you didn't know him personally, or just as a fan from watching. If you could take two players, what two players would you take to make Len Bias as a basketball player? If you could think of two players that you could form into one, you know, merge into one player.
Are you saying the college player or just player period?
Player period.
Because
I'm gonna ask each of you this.
I like the
question.
Kobe. I like the Kobe one because I've always been a Kobe guy.
Kobe and a mix of who?
I'm gonna go with someone bigger.
Okay.
Someone bigger than Kobe. I like. I would even say maybe Giannis.
Okay.
I knew he was going to say Giannis. I was about to say. I was about to preface it and say he can't say Giannis. But I knew you were going to say
Kobe
Giannis.
and Giannis. Okay.
Generational, next level, revolutionary. Someone who did things you hadn't seen done, and did them in a way that you hadn't seen done.
That's a great
and when
point,
we all,
he was definitely going to change.
There wasn't
definitely.
There wasn't. We didn't have highlight shows 24 hours a day.
Right.
I had 3 channels growing up, network channels, and they were fuzzy as it was.
Right.
So Len Bias was all we got. Was 6 to 10 years old. That was Len Bias highlights was all I got, and that's all I needed. Right. And so he was it.
Da-na-na.
Yeah.
Mass, what about you?
What'd you say?
Give me two players.
You see, man, that's the thing. And me and Walt have talked about this at length. There is nobody
I was going to say
that I've
nobody.
seen that literally reminds me of Len Bias. I'm sorry, guys. I mean,
Right.
I'm not.
Oh,
gonna
that's
say
a
I'm
good-
Len
that's a
Bias.
great
I was going to
answer.
say the
It's-
same thing.
that's a
Like,
Go ahead, Mass.
There is no
Jesus.
body that reminds me of Len Bias, because there is a combination of athleticism and jump shot and skill and dog mentality, meaning I will snatch your heart out and show it to you, like mentality on the basketball court. There's an element of Kobe from the competitive standpoint. He had that, meaning like I'm an assassin on the basketball court. I will not be denied. Len Bias had that. There's a level of athleticism that's overwhelming, like LeBron James. Like there's nobody that could really match up with LeBron just from an athletic standpoint.
Wow.
You're either too small, which means that you're going to get dominated. If you're bigger than him, then you're not quick enough. If you're quick enough, then you're not strong enough. Like there's just a combination that is so rare that you just do not see it. And again, man, I look at the only thing that I can really, really, as close as I can get to it with Lenny, is to almost say that he was a bigger, stronger version of Michael Jordan, who didn't dribble the ball more than 3 times. See, didn't have
Wow.
Michael's handle, but he had a better jump shot than Michael Jordan at the college level. He was bigger and stronger and just as athletic as Michael Jordan when they were in college. So
Tony,
you get
I
that.
got a quick question
Yeah, go ahead.
before we ask Wiz this same question. Now, and Lefty, because I played for Lefty at James Madison, and he would always, and I'd ask him too, but he'd always tell me things about Lenny. You know, he loved him to death.
Uh-huh.
But he would talk about how in shape he was and how he was just in like a machine. And did that influence the way that you took care of your body, or the way that you were such a powerfully built player? Did it have anything to do with or maybe subliminally seeing Lenny prepare his body and take care of his body like that before you?
Let me tell you. Let me explain this to you guys. It wasn't subliminal. It was intentional.
Intentional, okay, yeah.
It was a carbon copy of what I saw Len Bias do his
Wow.
senior year. It was everything that I did was a carbon copy of what Len Bias would lift weights at 12 a.m. sometime at nighttime. Well, guess what? In 1986, when I was 19 years old, when my body was going through the change, I grew a half inch from my freshman year. Well, maybe close to an inch my freshman year. And that was one reason why I couldn't gain any weight, because I was still growing. My sophomore year, when I totally stopped growing, is when the weight room actually started working for me, because I lifted weights my freshman year too, but it seemed like nothing happened. So it really didn't. My body didn't change until I stopped growing vertically.
Very
And you
interesting.
see
Very
that, and you
interesting.
see that with kids today. That's why when I see a lanky kid in high school, I look at his bone structure and I can tell what his potential for gaining muscle is going to be once
Right.
his quote unquote grown man body starts to kick in.
Right.
So that started to happen for me at 19. But the work ethic in the weight room, that was all Len Bias. All Len Bias. It wasn't anybody else. I wanted to make my body look like Len Bias's body.
Wow.
And so that's why, and I carried that mentality all the way through my pro career as far as the weight room. Anybody that's ever played with me as a pro who may not have even known me in college, they will tell you that I was the guy that was always in the weight room. And that mentality started with Len Bias.
You know
How
what?
about you?
Go ahead, Will.
How about you, Wiz? What
I agree with Tony. Like when you think about all the greats, it's always somebody that comes that reminds you of that person. And I can honestly say I've never seen anybody before or since that reminded me even a little bit of him. So, but having said that, I would say the size of LeBron,
okay.
the mentality, the competitiveness of Jordan, and the shooting of KD.
Wow.
Nah, that's a
There you
yeah,
go.
wow.
And that's a great
That's it.
analogy, Wiz.
That's
I
it.
was actually going
That's
to say
it.
if you put a gun to my head and said pick somebody, I would probably say Antonio McDyess.
Oh,
Because he's the guy that I played against. Antonio, you remember this,
McNice.
guys. Before the knee surgery with McDyess, McDyess was 6'10", about 240, 245, and he had a 40-inch vertical.
yeah.
And he was also a dude that played with his back to the basket. He was also a dude that had that pretty turnaround jump shot.
Turnaround jumper.
Similar,
Yes, he did.
similar to Len Bias. Not just like it, but similar. Closest probably that I could think of as far as a forward that was super athletic and had a nice jump shot. But Dice didn't have the range on his jump shot that Len Bias had. So, I limit that comparison, but it's as close athletically and stature wise that I can make that comparison.
Guys,
I'ma
I'm
tell you
very,
that- I'ma-
very
I'ma-
excited to get a hold of this book. How do we get a hold of it?
Well, autographed copies are available on lessonsfromlenny.com.
Okay.
But the books are sold wherever you can get books, man. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Wait, we global, baby. So
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
global. We're in
Yeah.
Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and again, we said it. All the personal autograph copies will be available through our website, specifically lessonsfromlenny.com.
Lessons from
One of the things, real
Lenny.com.
quick, before we get off, I was watching 30 for 30 last night. I had seen it before, the Celtics and the Lakers rivalry,
yeah.
and I mean, it's, if you haven't seen it, it's unbelievable, because that was right in our generation, in our time, with those great Celtics, those great Lakers teams, and back and forth, and they go from the '84 year when the Celtics beat the Lakers, and then '85 when the Lakers beat the Celtics, and '86 when the Celtics had arguably one of the best teams of all time, and they went on, they beat Houston, and then in '87 when the Lakers beat them, but they were talking about Lenny, and they were talking about how Lenny was going to be that piece to keep them on par with the Lakers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the Celtics were getting older. Bird's body was kind of breaking down. McHale ended up having that year where I think he broke his foot, and he played the playoffs with a broken foot. Parrish was breaking down. Bill Walton, who had played in '86, he broke down. So their whole front court was breaking down, and here you have this shiny penny that you're going to be able to implement into this team that was going to be able to take the Celtics beyond.
Yep.
And they were looking at Lenny as that piece, Bird, Parrish, McHale, that legendary front court. And then you have Len Bias coming in, who is going to be that guy who's going to keep them on par with the Lakers. And they said it, that outside of the injuries that they had to Bird, McHale, and Parrish and Walton, they missed Lenny Bias.
It set them back
did. It
years.
set them
Yes, it
back
did.
years.
Years,
And this
bro.
is a guy that never played for the Celtics. Never played for the Celtics, but they already knew the potential he had. And Tony and Walt have touched on it tremendously. But what he would have been able to do at the next level, because he probably would have been much better at the NBA level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let alone, we saw what he did at Maryland, but just imagine what he'd been able to do if he year round, all he's doing is playing basketball, having that weight room, having those skills development, all that stuff. Think about what he would have done at the NBA level, playing for the best team in the league at that time. That's
Well,
amazing
first
to
thing,
me.
Juice, you just said that the most important thing about Len Byers' potential and what he could have been.
Yep.
When you talked about that front line.
Yep.
See, and Wiz, you can attest to this. When you go into the NBA and you have an opportunity not just to play with vets, but an opportunity to play with Hall of Famers,
Yes.
Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, like
Yes.
these guys, these were going to be Len Bias's vets. So let me tell you what I think would have happened. I think that as good a shooter as Len Bias would have been, the fact that Larry Bird was going to come to rookie free agent camp just because of Lenny, to work out with Lenny,
Wow.
I think that he would have been an even better shooter. The fact that Lenny already had the dog mentality like a Michael Jordan or like a Kobe Bryant, you put him next to a Larry Bird who also has an assassin's mentality, he would have been even more of an assassin on the court. Then you look at the fact that you got post players like Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish to actually fine tune your back to the basket game. So Len Bias would have been an inside outside version of what we see
scary.
right now in modern basketball.
It's scary
I think
how
that
efficient he would have been.
He would have been the bridge to the future, and that's what Red Auerbach saw
That's
in
what he
him
saw.
when we were talking about bridging. I talked about him being the guy to carry the Celtics into the new generation. Red Auerbach saw that way back then, that this guy will be the guy that can play inside, that can play outside, and he is a winner as far as his mentality and what he's willing to do to make his team better.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So we can't end the show, even though it's a special book club edition. We can't end it without a give me your five, and so I want to make it very particular to the conversation we're having, and we'll do it quick on the way out. We got 5 of us here. Everyone gets one.
Give me your
one
5.
pick. Give me your 5. You get to take one trait and bring it to yourself from Len Bias, and it's going to be hard, and there's a lot of them to go around. I'll lead us
You
off.
want to start with me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go in this
you-
direction.
Yeah, you start us off today.
All right. I already am in love with my jump shot.
I know. That's what I was going to say. I know you're not going to take his jump shot.
Of course, that thing is so pretty, like we all been saying. I'm not going to take his jump shot.
Okay.
I'm going to
Still
take his
available.
incredible jumping ability because I'm grounded. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you are.
I'm gonna take his incredible jumping
Yep.
ability.
Skywalker.
Oh my goodness! You know how I'm gonna elevate on my jump shot with Len Bias's vertical.
Yeah.
Give me his.
All right. Len Bias's vertical is the number 1 pick off the board.
Yes, give me his vertical.
You want to go number 2, Juice?
Give me his jump shot.
Oh, I mean, I would have taken that number 1 overall.
Give me his jump shot. He had the most beautiful jump shot I've ever seen, man. I mean,
Yes,
it's
he did.
picture perfect. The extension on his shot,
It was.
his elbow
It was
going
textbook.
up, and it was smooth.
You could
You
teach
know
it.
what I mean? And think about it, like he shot a lot of mid-range shots. Like his 3-point range, it was that would have been ridiculous. And when he
But
really
the
worked
thing
on
you
that,
guys
Threes
forgetting
out
about
there,
that
and he's putting
3-point
in that work
range
now.
is that even though Lenny averaged 23 his senior year, you got to remember Lenny was shooting threes.
Yes, he
When there
was.
was no 3-point
when
line.
there was no 3-point
There
line.
was no 3-point line.
Right.
So that 23 would have really been like 26
20,
had there
yeah.
been a 3-point line.
Yeah.
So this dude was cut up, chiseled, right?
Yeah.
So I remember my freshman year, and I came into the weight room, and all of us in there, football players, everybody, and we doing some testing, and we got to the dips. We on the bars with the dip bars, and I went up.
You ain't get back down?
Man, to start off, man, I went down and could not get up one time, not one time, and it was in front of everyone, right? So I was pretty much the next few days. I was pretty much hiding in the weight room. I wasn't lifting weights or anything, but I would see Tony working out, so he kind of motivated me to lift weights. But up until then, man, I was hiding in there. But I would love to have that body that dude
body,
had.
yeah.
Hey,
No doubt.
real quick. You know, today Jalen Smith, they call him Sticks, right? You are the original Sticks.
Absolutely, bro. 6'8", 165.
Yeah,
Believe it.
the original Sticks.
6'8", 165.
165,
You know, the funny
man.
thing, guys, and I always tell the story, me and Wiz laugh about it, when Coach Wade brought him in. And the first thing he said, I looked at Wiz, right? Again, 6'8". Now, you got to think about me, my junior year. I'm like 240, right? So I'm looking at Wiz, and I'm like, okay. Like, all right. Like, okay. So I pull Coach Wade to the side. And I'm like, this the dude you've been telling me about?
Stick figure out there,
Right?
bro.
And Coach Wade just looks at me and kind of nods his head like, yeah, this dude right here, we got us one. He's a player. I kind of look at him like, I don't know. He looks a little hungry.
Oh,
but I will,
man.
and I always end the story with this. I had my doubts when I first saw the Wizards, but from the first day of our first pickup game, when Coach Wade rolled those balls out for us to play, when he picked that ball up, it was over for me. Everything that I saw from that point, I was a Wizard fan from his freshman year, up until the modern era. So I said that. Gerard Mustaf was clearly the most highly ranked freshman we had in 1988, and he was the guy, highly coveted. But I went to Coach Wade not long after Wiz got to Maryland and said, "Hey, we need to run this dude at the
This
point."
dude is the goods.
Yeah.
This dude is like that. So
Yes.
again, we all went through our struggles in the weight room. Much like you, Wiz. When I first got there, I went down on that dip bar, and I came back up one time, but it was real shaky. It was real
The
shaky.
Maryland
I
dip
got
bar.
I got one dip.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna let Tony go last because he has a deeper, he knows all the things. I jump shot would have been my number 1. I like the juxtaposition of the smile and the monster face from the floor because he had an amazing smile. But when you watched him play and he got that mean look, when he was eyeing someone down,
Right.
or it was almost like it was a poker face. Sometimes it wasn't even mean; it was blank.
Right.
And to me, that was the hardest look, one of the hardest looks you saw because it almost was like he's not even trying.
Right.
He doesn't even care. He might not. He could be anywhere right now, but you know what? Right now, he's just beasting out on you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Let me bring something to y'all, and I'm gonna take y'all back on this one to see if you remember.
Okay.
A very long time ago in college basketball, when Len Bias was like a junior, maybe even a sophomore, Adrian Branch was also on the team. I remember this well. Do you guys remember when college players would run out during the introduction and you would shake hands
Yeah.
with the guy like they call your name
yeah,
and you
yeah,
would slap
yeah.
the other guy's hand?
Yep.
Well, if you guys remember, Len Bias and Adrian Branch are the reason why they don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
And do you know why?
slap
Because
those
Len
hands
Bias
off.
and Adrian Branch got and Ben Coleman and Hermanville and these guys, they got to a place where they would slap your hand so hard before the game in an effort to intimidate you
Wow.
that college
Really?
ultimately the officials of college basketball decided that they would stop doing that because they were literally about to break dudes' hands in the warm-ups because they would
Wow, I
slap
didn't
their
know
hands
that. I did not
so
know
hard.
that.
Yeah, that's why they don't do that anymore. Go back and look at the videotapes, and you'll see Len Bias, Adrian Branch, and Hermanville, and Ben Coleman, these guys. They would run out, and they would literally, the guy's hand that they were supposed to shake, they would slap him a high five that would literally almost break the dude's hand. So
Wow.
that is the type of intimidating that Len Bias and that generation of guys was into. And that was the Maryland way. That was a reflection on Lefty, like the toughness, like guys like Buck Williams and all that. That's the stuff that I admired about the University of Maryland. So
Wow, I
when
did
we
not
talk
know that.
about what I would have taken from Lenny, clearly I worked in the weight room. You guys knew that.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a 40-inch vertical, but I did have a 37.5-inch
Right.
vertical.
Yeah.
So I did get, you know, at 6'9", I would get good elevation on my jump shot.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite like Lenny's, but I would get higher than most people because running and jumping is something I could always do. If I had to take one thing from Len Bias, it would definitely be the jump shot.
Yeah.
It would definitely
Absolutely.
be the jump shot.
Absolutely.
I mean, that just opened his game up. When you can shoot the ball like that, much like you see in today's game, when you got that type of range, it commands a level of respect that gives you other options to do things on the basketball court because people got to be so concerned about your ability to knock down that shot.
Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to say
Everybody.
thank you. I want to say
Yeah.
thanks to Tony
This
and
was
Walt
great,
for
King.
hanging
This
out with
was
us on a Sunday.
Hey, Wiz, give us that how we get
Yes.
that how we get that book again. Where we go for it?
You can get it on our website if you want an autographed copy, lessonsfromlenny.com, or you can get it wherever they sell books, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you get your books.
All right. Okay.
T.
YouTube
Maz.
Live. Go out and get those books. Get that book, man. Support my boys.
T-Maz BY. Want to thank you, man, for
Maz,
coming on.
appreciate you, baby.
Hey, man, I appreciate y'all, man. Every time I hear y'all call me BY, I just laugh. I think about that big youngin. Like, I don't
Big
know what people call
youngin.
me now because I ain't no youngin at this point. And I ain't as big as I used to be.
I'm gonna
So
tell
I'm
you.
just waiting
I'm gonna
to
tell
say
you
no
what.
more.
And I see you out on. I see you and Walt out on the circuit from time to time. I'm gonna have my own Sharpie. I'm getting my own personal autograph edition of this
Yeah, I
book,
need to
man.
get that
You
too, man.
supposed to.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you, fellas. I appreciate
thank
that,
you for
man. This
having
is
us,
great,
man.
man. This is great, man.
We'll be back
Thank you guys
again
for having us,
No
man.
problem, brother.
on maybe not Christmas Tuesday, but you'll be seeing and hearing from us very soon on yet another episode of.
The Hot Box.
On behalf of Kevin McClinton, Darren McClinton, Tony Massenburg, Walt Williams, I'm Ken Marangolo. And Kevin, this was
The Hot Box.
HotBox.
Hit the off button.
Hot box.
Good night or good afternoon.
Good night,
Shit.
good
Still
morning.
live. We're still live.
All right, fellas.
Is it off?
That's cool, man. That's
That
cool,
was fun.
man.
Hit
I
it.
wish I could have made it up there, yo. We had to do another one or something at some point.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, we're gonna get you in studio.
Yeah,
Yep,
we
yep.
circle back.
Y'all just